Sorry, little Rocky theme song. Little Rocky theme song. Little Rocky. Hey, Lauren. Didn't I just see you, Lauren? Gordon, welcome. Lauren, currently at Penn State. Gordon, formerly at Penn State Harrisburg. Both Penn State Harrisburg. Good to see you both. Thanks for tuning in. Anxious to get rocking and rolling here with another glorious AMXkids. What? Yeah, AMXkids. I love recording these episodes. Yes. Check that. Boom. All right, Young's ready. I'm about ready to dive into some. You hear my dog barking? She's barking upstairs. Try not to have her bark when I record, but can't much do much about it. Can't much do much about it. All right, we're gonna rock and roll with AMXkids, and I gotta hurry because I'm gonna try to get this posted on my podcast feed by 4 p.m. That means we got 24 minutes from right now. That means we gotta rock and roll, rock and roll, rock and roll, rock and roll. Okay, let me do a little bit of review here. All right. All right, you ready? Are you ready? One, two, three. Hello, my young friends, and welcome back to another episode of AMXkids. Can you believe already this is AMXkids 15? Today, for the third week in a row, we are studying The Outsiders, a book by S.E. Hinton, a book that you, and maybe even your parents and your teachers, should read if you haven't already. This is a good one, and today I'm going to share with you 3 learning points. And they're big ones. They're big learning points, so pay attention. A reminder, if you are following me here on AMXkids and you want to interact on social media, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram on a regular basis. My handle, my name is @CharlieSpaniard. I want to talk books. I love talking books. I love geeking out. I love just getting down and dirty in the books, in the book talk. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me and contact me there. I will respond because I love anyone that wants to read and I want to talk with you. So today we're talking about The Outsiders. Again, a book by S.E. Hinton. And author S.E. Hinton wrote this book when she was 15 years old. She finished it when she was 16. Why? To help her navigate or to help her get through her problems as a youth. Look, I'm a 37-year-old. And the problems, the challenges, the obstacles, the uncomfortable situations I had in middle school, I still remember them. And chances are when you're 37, when you're an old man like me, chances are you're going to remember them too. So understand that we are all dealing with or have dealt with situations like this. And I'm going to touch on something before, but S.E. Hinton wrote this book as a way to cope with and understand the problems and challenges that she was dealing with. So maybe you could start writing. I'm gonna touch more on that idea here in a little bit. But let's dive into the first major bullet point that I want to discuss here. And remember, young people, middle schoolers, just listen. Sit back and listen. Relax. You don't have to take notes. You don't have to read the book, though. I would love for you to read the book. And parents and teachers and coaches, use these episodes, use these discussions right here to form your own discussions with your team, your class, your kids, etc. So at one point in the book, Ponyboy and Johnny get themselves into some trouble. They find themselves in a really serious, life-changing, life-altering, potentially just a not good situation, right? It turns into a very, very serious thing that can change the direction of their lives. So I want to talk here about the importance of choices. Like I said, Ponyboy and Johnny, they're friends, they're doing their own things, they're just being kids, and all of a sudden they find themselves into a situation that gets out of hand, and all of a sudden it's extremely, extremely serious. So the point I want to extract here is that of the importance of choices. So whether we're talking about drinking and drugs, maybe being honest with your parents, being honest with your teachers, being honest on tests, any choice that you have, really in your life, it covers a wide array of situations. The importance of those choices. So the thing I want to make you aware of or bring out right here is that you can think you're in control. You can think you're in control. You can underestimate something so simple as texting and driving, something so simple as taking a sip of alcohol when you're not supposed to. All these little things that you might think are, not a big deal, all of a sudden, boom, can get out of control. And oftentimes we underestimate, like I just said, we think, oh, it's not really that important. So we underestimate and or we forget the possible consequences of our choices. I can remember my parents telling me at a very young age, there are consequences to your actions. Meaning, if you do a thing or you make a choice, there will be a consequence to that choice. And consequences, most of the time, we're talking about negative things, but a consequence could also be a good thing. But understand, the choice you make, the decision you make, there is a consequence. I remember way back in the day, you all are probably a little bit too young to remember this movie, but it was called The Butterfly Effect. And there's a butterfly effect. So if you make this one choice right now, something will happen after that choice, and it will continue to have an effect into the future. And oftentimes we just simply underestimate and or forget the possible consequences of our choices. Now, obviously, if you're listening to AMXkids, you have a desire to be on or stay on the right track. You wouldn't be listening to it if you didn't. So I want you to give yourselves a nice pat on the shoulder for that and know that I sincerely appreciate that. But I want to talk about, again, the importance of those choices and how you can avoid. Now, there's no foolproof. Remember, if you listened last week when I told you that E plus R equals O, if you're listening right now, this is a pop quiz. Hit pause. And if there's a teacher listening right now, teacher, I want you to say, what does E plus R plus O equal? And then hit pause. Okay, we're back. E plus R plus O equals event plus response equals outcome. And you know from last week that events, you can't control every event in your life. You never will be able to control. But we want to control the controllables. We want to control the things that we can control. So here's 2 strategies that I have used throughout my life to avoid having to make these potentially big choices. Remember, it's not foolproof, but here are 2 strategies to employ that can help you avoid being in the situations where these choices are so stinking important. First and foremost, don't put yourself in the situation. How about that? Don't put yourself in the situation. If you know that there's going to be drugs and alcohol at a party, don't go to the party. You know that if you go to the party, you will be exposed to it. That's a choice. And there's a consequence to that. You have to be aware of those consequences. And please, don't think for a second that I'm perfect. The Spaniard is not perfect by any means. But I'm sharing with you the things that I believe in, the things that I have learned through my own experiences and through the experiences of my friends and family as well. So the first thing you can do is don't put yourself in the situation. Don't go to the party. Don't do the thing. Don't go to the place. You know, that's very, very first and foremost. I'll give you a really kind of a funny but a really true example. I tend to love Swiss cake rolls. Do you know what Swiss cake rolls are? They're one of my favorite, and double stuffed Oreos as well. Swiss cake rolls is probably crimpets, butterscotch crimpets. I love them. I love them. And if they're in my cupboard, if they're in my cabinet, it's a choice that I have to make. Am I going to eat the Swiss cake roll? Am I going to eat the butterscotch crimpet? Or am I not going to eat it? Now, if I employ strategy number 1, don't put yourself in the situation, that means when I'm at the store and I see double stuffed Oreos, or I see Swiss cake rolls, or I see butterscotch crimpets, they're so good. If I see those 3 things, I simply just don't buy them. Because I know I don't want to put myself in the situation. I don't want to make myself have to choose. Do I want to eat the candy, the junk, or do I not want to eat the junk? So, 1, I remove myself from the situation. I simply don't buy the thing. Strategy number 2, if you are in the situation, get out. If you're in the situation and you realize I'm in a bad situation, I'm in an uncomfortable situation, I don't feel comfortable right now, get out of the situation. Call someone to pick you up. I can't tell you, and this is true, and I want you to believe me that I'm being honest here. I can't tell you how many, I'm a professional fighter, right? Well, that doesn't mean I love to fight outside of a professional sport. I can't tell you how many fights I walked away from in my life. How many times there were where people wanted to fight me. And I swallowed my, whether you want to call it pride, or maybe I was laughed at, or maybe I was ridiculed, but I turned around and walked away because I understood that the consequences of getting in that fight. And it was something that I didn't want to risk. So I left many parties and or walked away from many fights because of that situation. So 2 strategies to employ to help you avoid being put in a difficult situation is 1, and having to make a difficult choice. Number 1, just don't put yourself in the situation. And strategy number 2, if you're in the situation, get out. Maybe people make fun of you. Maybe people say, loser. So what? I'm telling you that I'm here today, and I'm okay. I'm 37, and I'm okay with it. Those are the 2 strategies to employ. You might be called uncool. You might be called a wimp. But listen, if your goals and your priorities are in the right place, trust me, you'll get through it. Moving on, I talk about this a fair amount because a lot of people, both young and old, you're not the only ones, a lot of people, there's this word bravado, acting like you're like strong and big and tough and unafraid, bravado. But I want to tell you this, it's okay. I talk about this often. It's okay to be afraid. In the book, Ponyboy and Johnny, they're in this situation. And they mention several times as being scared. You know, they're in this situation. They mention several times, we are scared. I'm scared. This is scary. And I want to send it out there and make sure that you understand the fact that it's okay to be scared. Absolutely okay. I'm scared on a regular basis. When I would get in the ring to fight people, I was scared. How could you not be scared? These are some of the toughest men on the planet, and I was getting in a locked cage to fight them. If I wasn't scared, then I wouldn't be alive. Right? It wouldn't have been normal to not be scared. So understand that it's okay to be scared. No one is immune to it. For example, I took my daughter to the doctor's the other day to get a shot. And I was explaining to her, hey, Gracie, it's okay for you to be scared, but it's how we're going to handle being scared. It's how we're going to act because we're scared. And if you want to get really deep, overcoming that fear, once you overcome that fear, courage, if you've ever heard that word, maybe that's a good vocab word for this lesson. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward even though you're afraid, in spite of the fear, that you still move forward. That's courage. And that's what it means to be brave. It's not feeling the fear. That's simply not real. I've fought with or against the toughest men on the planet. I've wrestled with and against some of the best wrestlers ever, talked to them, asked them questions. I'm going to say not one single example has ever said, nope, I'm not afraid. Everyone is afraid. And one of the best things to do to get it out of you, I mentioned this a little bit at the beginning of the episode, but one of the best things that you can do to get it out of you, maybe you feel that fear boiling inside of you and it's tearing you apart and you just don't know what to do with it. Remember how at the beginning of this episode I talked about S.E. Hinton and how she wrote this book to deal with the problems and obstacles and challenges that she was facing as a teenager? Maybe you could do that. Maybe you could talk about it. Maybe you could write about it. Maybe even you could sing about it. Maybe you could write a song that would say, I'm afraid and I don't know why, but I'm afraid. Okay? No matter how you want to do it. Whether you want to write about it, whether you want to talk to someone about it, explain to your teacher, explain to your parent, explain to your coach, explain to your guidance counselor. It helps to get that fear outside of you, whether you write about it, whether you sing about it, whether you talk about it. Work on getting it outside of you. Understand that it's okay and you're not the only one. And the last thing I want to talk about, a little bit about identity. So in the book, from the beginning, we've talked about this idea of there being two classes here, two groups here. And when I say classes, they're separated by social standing, social classes. You have the socius, who are kind of the more, they have more money, they're more proper, they dress nicer, they're considered cooler. And then you have the greasers, which by the name implies maybe they have greasy hair, maybe they're not as socially, maybe they don't have as much money as the socius. So there's these two groups, the greasers and the socius. And in today's reading, Ponyboy is talking about the importance of their hair and how their hair is a big part of their identity. So the learning point I want to talk about here is identity. So at one point, Ponyboy says of their hair, "Our hair labeled us greasers." It was who they were. It identified them. So think about yourself. Is there a shirt or a team or a group that you belong to that you identify yourself as that thing? I'll give you for example. When I was younger, I was a wrestler. I still identify myself as a wrestler. I was then a UFC fighter. I was a runner at one point in time. I ran cross country. I'm now a speaker. I'm an author. I'm a podcaster. These are all titles. Okay? So according to what Ponyboy was saying, that's how he was thinking of his identity. I look this certain way. I am this certain thing. But I want to throw something at you. So what I learned post-college wrestling, I had identified myself as a wrestler. Now, make sure you're paying attention here because this is really important. I had identified myself as a wrestler for my entire life. And then when I got done with college wrestling, I was no longer a wrestler and I had no idea who I was as a person. I had no identity. I was not a wrestler. I was not this thing that I always was. So what was I? And I didn't know. And it was a very, very, very difficult time. But what I have learned since that time, and what I'm going to offer to you, is rather than labeling yourself, right? Rather than identifying yourself as who you are, that thing you do. I'm a football player. I'm a wrestler. I still do that a little bit today, but hear me out here. Or I'm in the band. Or rather than do it that way, why don't you identify yourself as a person and your values? How about that? So what I learned post-college was it's not only that I'm a wrestler, or post-fighting, it's not only that I'm a fighter, it's that I am this person who values hard work, who values discipline, who values sacrifice, who values family, who values excellence. That is who I am. So if you do it that way, if you identify yourself as the type of person you are, the values that you have, you can then become, technically, you can label yourself as anything in the future. You're not beholden to one single thing. So maybe in the future, I'll no longer be a speaker. Maybe I'll be a different thing. And that thing is going to change. And if you go by who you are as a person, the traits that you have, and the things that are important to you as a person, then you don't ever have to worry about losing yourself. When I was done wrestling, I lost myself. I didn't know who I was. I was no longer a wrestler. And through many, many, many years and many nights of being confused, I've learned, oh wait, I'm a person who values hard work and discipline and sacrifice and all of these things. And it's very comforting because I now know I'm never going to lose myself. So if you haven't already, make sure you identify your core values. Write down the things that are important to you and the things that you value in your life. And your label, teacher, singer, artist, maybe that'll change in time. But if you're crystal clear about the type of person you are, you don't have to worry about that label because you will never lose yourself. This has been AMXkids 15. I hope that makes sense to you. I think it makes sense. I enjoy talking about it, and it's a really important lesson because I know when I finished wrestling, I was like, who the heck am I? I got to figure this out I got to figure this out quick time. As always, I love this stuff. I love reading this stuff. I love talking about these books. So kids, parents, teachers, coaches, whomever is listening, please reach out to me. Talk to me about these books. My social media is at Charlie Spaniard across the board. These AMX Kids episodes come out every Tuesday at 4 p.m. And if you're a grown-up or you're a youngster and you want to stretch your brain a little bit, I also do this with grown-up books. Every weekday, Monday through Friday, I'm posting a new episode on my podcast feed, so be sure to subscribe. AMX stands for AM Excellence, to start your day off on a right foot. AMX Kids, we're doing the same thing. We're reading kids' books. We're talking about kids' books, extracting the learning principles. I hope you follow along. I would love to talk further at Charlie Spaniard on social media. You all have fun. Read a book. A singer and a dreamer. Lauren, you're a singer? I didn't know you were a singer. What? Lauren's a singer. I had no idea. All right. Ooh, I have 5 minutes, so I gotta upload this. Ooh, I made it. I'll see you all bright and early tomorrow morning for AM Excellence, and I encourage you all, please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. That way, you can get every new episode sent straight to your phone, and you never have to miss one. You never have to have an excuse as to why you didn't listen to AMX that day, because it'll be there for you. See ya tomorrow morning.